It goes like this and comes out of my mouth. It's hilarious. So I'm like, hey. Anyway.
Well, should we dive into it now?
I think we should just dive right in. It's been an hour.
I knew we'd have a lot to talk about.
Yeah, I know. That's good. I'm glad. I'm going to try and get us through the actual run through quickly. Just hit the things we have. Like, we don't have to talk about anything we don't have a comment about.
Mm-hmm.
So
sounds good to me.
I'm going to try that. All right. Ghosty fam, Amy here. Welcome to The Activity Continues, a podcast where three soul friends talk about all things paranormal. Ghosts, hauntings, psychics, movies and TV shows, especially The Dead Files, and other spooky and spooky adjacent things. We also like to interview people in the paranormal community, as well as past Dead Files clients and other interesting people. Sometimes we even tell your stories. I hope you enjoy the show.
Hello. And welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us again. Today, as you might notice, it's just Amy and I. We're having a blast, as if you listen to our chatter that has been going on already in the sideshow that came out a little while ago, you'll know. Today, we're going to be talking about the Dead Files episode called Never Alone, which is from season 2. On Max Discovery, it's episode 11. On Travel Channel streaming, it's episode 9. So just look for the title of Never Alone in season 2. It originally aired over 11 years ago on February 1st, 2013. So, that's just kind of where we're going today. And, thankfully, it's been hotter and humider than heck out there right now. Mm-hmm. So I appreciated watching one where they looked a little chilly, but I would say that it wasn't that cold that they were sitting in with their hats and jackets on.
Yeah. Amy did have a hat on, and I think she may have had mittens on at one point.
She had flip gloves. So they had the fingers and then had the mitten that came over the top.
Yep. I got to get me some of those.
Yep.
Not for a few months yet, but
Amy, what are we warning people about today?
Well, this episode has suicide and child death in history, and also, this is also child death, but particularly or specifically a stillborn baby, which I know can be something people don't want to talk about, and we don't necessarily have to talk about. It's just it's one of the
It's
entities.
Something that'll be out there.
Yeah, one of the entities had that happen, and I think that's about it. I didn't think there was anything. I mean, not like that's not enough, because it's a little.
It wasn't as bad as some of the other ones we've seen of all the different things. But as always, just check the show notes if you're concerned about something.
Yeah, if we end up going off on a tangent and talking about something else, I'll make sure that's in the show notes. But as far as the Dead Files episode, that's what we encountered so far. So for housekeeping, just want to do a little reminder about the side shows that AP already mentioned. This one will be the one that we recorded before we started. This is number 4. So that would have been out. Let's see. It'll be out June 13th. So by the time this comes out, August 1st, hopefully you will have heard that one already. So that's just what we're doing every other week. We will have Dead Files content. And the other weeks, there will be the Chitter Chatter show. And then our patron, Shannon, mentioned, she's the one that recommended the episode we did last week.
Okay.
Last time.
Mm-hmm.
So she commented in Patreon about a little tiny short ghost story that I was going to read.
Nice.
So she said this is part of her comment about the episode she listened to today, which I can't remember the name of that one. They Come From the Stars, I think it was. Anyway, she said, and before I forget, I was awake in bed this morning with the cat on me, and I heard a hand on the bedroom doorknob. So I turned my head, and this is all in caps, saw the door open a few more inches, then heard footsteps go down the hall. I was sure it was my daughter. I got up, and my daughter's door was still shut, and she was still out cold.
Great. Yeah. Sounds like fun.
Yeah, that's fun.
Fantastic.
Mm-hmm. All right, so this is the overview for this episode. Today, we are headed to Forester, Michigan to meet the client, Crystal, and her family, who are experiencing noises, voices, footsteps, objects being moved, lights going off and on, and seeing shadows, as well as it taking an emotional toll on the whole family. The home was left to them by Crystal's mother, and they want to turn it into a bed and breakfast per her wishes. We learn that their sweet daughter Brittany is feeling like she's being watched, and she sees a big black shadow figure. Amy encounters a few spirits, a former owner who is a creeper who tries to jump her, a young girl who is very energetic and talks nonstop. We don't know anything about that.
I have no idea who that could be.
Male and female dark figures that are psychokinetic manifestations, which is something new for me anyway.
Mm-hmm.
She also meets a ghostly grieving mother. That's what we referred to in the beginning. Steve speaks to a local author and learns of a local legend about a heartbroken young woman who died by suicide at 15 years old by jumping
I have a lot
off.
to say about that
I
one.
know. By jumping off a pier into Lake Huron. He also meets a historian who tells him about a series of fires that devastated the community, killing hundreds of people. He then meets a genealogist, not a gynecologist, who tells him about a former property owner whose family suffered terrible grief. At the reveal, Brittany asks Amy a lot of really great questions, and they get to the bottom of what's happening and who is causing it. We see a spooky sketch, and Amy gives them their to-dos. Are they able to do what is needed? If you watch this on Max, you'll never know, because they cut it off and jumped right to the next episode without telling us.
Rude.
Again. I know, I watched it twice to make sure. 3 times, actually. The 3rd time, I already knew that it wasn't there. But we do have the results, so stay tuned, and I'll let you know if the activity continues.
Ooh. I was wondering if you didn't get that because I didn't see it in the script at the end, and I was like,
it wasn't there.
I don't think she saw that.
It wasn't there. I did when I went onto Hulu and watched it on Hulu, so I could tell, but it was not on Max, and I verified that by looking at it twice. I know, rude. Okay, so segment 1 is from the very beginning up until Steve goes into town. Just for you guys listening, that's the way we're going to try and do this. So we're gonna give it the old college try. So the first thing that I noted was that as Steve is introducing the client to us, he says that the house that she's inherited is not only scaring her, it's tearing her entire family apart.
Oh man, we've never heard that before. But the thing is when you watch the episode, I didn't gather there was anybody really being torn apart, like family being torn apart in this one, as even in comparison to some of the other ones that we've listened to or watched, where they're like, oh man, there's a lot of fighting and stuff going on. Like I didn't get that out of this episode. No. So there was, I think I put gotta love the drama, and Steve was in his Easter green shirt.
Oh, I saw that you said Easter green, and I'm like, I don't know what that means.
Yep, it was just a very bright, like, I don't remember seeing him in a color like that before or since, really. And it's kind of funny when you watch these earlier ones, like, we need to find that transition point where he stopped wearing suits at the beginning.
Yeah.
Because he went to
when they started doing them in the warm places, and he's just in his polos.
Yeah. I don't know. As we go on, then we go from Steve to Matt, who's like, it's obvious that a family lives here. Like, isn't this?
It's not a business, so yes, it's a family.
Don't we have to say this about like every place we go into, and you got to take the photos down so they can't tell.
Right.
Amy can't be distracted.
You know, this is early on, but I think that in the beginning they probably didn't realize that they have people that watch every single fucking episode. So they're like, oh, if you just happen to catch episode 2 or season 2, episode 9 or 11 of our show, we have to explain how it works. So for the first couple years, they actually explained how it works quite a bit more than they ever did later.
Which, as you're talking about that, wasn't it last year in season 15 that we were seeing, like, they would show Amy and then they would put medium underneath her name?
Oh, yeah.
Because they don't do that
in
they don't do those in the early episodes. And the only thing I can think of is that they started doing that because, well, other shows do stuff like that. And then because they were introducing Cindy.
Yes, that's what I
think
for the
rest of the season.
That's what I think it was. Is they were like, in case anybody's confused, this is Amy. Next
That's
episode,
this
it's going to
this
be
is Cindy.
Cindy. Yeah.
Amy sure looks different and has a different accent
Oh my
now.
God. The people in the Dead Files group on Facebook. What happened to, well, who's that girl? What happened
I
to
know.
Amy?
I I saw that it's the okay, we're not gonna allow any more of these
Yeah.
posts.
Nobody asks that stupid question anymore. You
Yes.
should know by now. But, and again, I don't want to go in too deep, but I did want to note that Amy, the first thing we see about her is that she says she found this guy or met this guy, and all of a sudden she said, I was him. And she said that's
Mm-hmm.
never happened before in an opening, that I was the dead person or he was in me. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
wondering, I'm trying to think, has that happened since? I know that others
Yeah.
entities have tried to jump her, but I don't
Mm-hmm.
know if that happened when she was opening, because I think sometimes, at least later on, she would open like in the car or
Oh
she
yeah.
would open at the
She usually
hotel.
opens before she gets there,
Yeah,
is
yeah.
what we've kind of gathered, because occasionally she'll say, I didn't open till I got to the house.
Yeah.
But I remember episodes that she's been like, man, they were chatting me up in the car on the way
Mm-hmm.
here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know if she's mentioned anything like that happening since, but I also put down like she was so like shy, quiet, reserved in this
Mm-hmm.
one, just, and maybe it was because of this guy right off the bat, like jumping, but her demeanor was very, I guess it was almost like demure, like it was
Yeah.
very in tight and just like calm, and it wasn't the one that we've seen in other episodes in that same season where she gets even a little bit more
Mm-hmm.
sweary.
Sweary. Yeah. Yeah. I should said the occasional fuck here,
Oh yeah.
but yeah. That guy, she calls him a big burly dude with calloused hands.
Hmm.
And then she says she's getting a really sharp pain. And at one point, she was like scratching the back of her ear, but then I also did see her reach to her
I
back
don't think
at one
I
point.
watched that 3 times. I never
Mhm.
saw her hands go up to her head during that section where she's
Oh,
talking, but she twitched her head a couple of times
mm,
where I could see, because I went back, I saw your note in there and I was like, I didn't see that. So I went back and
mm,
watched it, and then I went back and watched it again, and I was like, I think maybe in the before section she might have done that, but in
maybe.
that section where she was talking about the pain, she never did. So I was wondering, like for me, I was thinking, well, it kind of looks like she's kind of stretching her side a little
Yeah,
bit, and then
oops, I thought I saw her like put her hand on
mhm,
like her back, the back rib cage.
yeah,
That's kind
and
of what I
then
thought she was
like
touching.
she like was
Yeah,
struggling to breathe kind of thing. So
yeah,
that's why I like my assumption went right to torso, and then I saw your note and I was like, oh, I didn't see her scratch her head, but I see they're focused very in on her, just her
yeah,
head and her
yeah,
shoulders, but she twitches her head a couple of times
yeah,
where maybe it
yeah,
was in there.
yeah,
But yeah, I noticed that too. I was like, ooh, yep, she's definitely being affected right here.
yeah, yeah, for sure. And then you had something about when they're talking to the client and
Yeah, yeah,
she tells all the things she's
yeah.
experiencing and she goes down her checklist. Doopy doopy
Yep.
doopy doopy doop.
It was just like, check, we've got unexplained noises. Check, we've got voices. Check, we've got footsteps. We've got
Yeah,
things moving. We've got lights going on and off. We've seen shadows. We're emotional. Like
yeah,
you just nailed the it's not even a trifecta anymore.
right,
Like
right. Yeah, and that's those should all be on the bingo cards.
yeah. And like I know we're being lighthearted and joking about it, but when you watch all the episodes and you're watching them very consistently, or if you watch them in a row or something, you start to see the little patterns that come
Yeah,
up. And obviously it's part of the set. Tell me what's going on. Well, we have this, and this. And then they talk a little bit more about it as they go through the episode.
hmm,
Because then, so Steve asks her, like, what's going on? And then they get into, well, how did you get here? Why are you here? Kind of thing.
hmm.
And that's when she talks about the bed and breakfast. And I just put, she's got such a Midwest accent
Yes,
because she's like, inherited from my mom
my
and
mom.
my mom.
If you guys think we have a strong Midwest accent, you got to watch this episode because that lady was us times 10.
Yeah. And like, it was just, it's like, oh, bed and breakfast. I mean, that sounds great. Sounds like a lot of work.
Be fun though.
And yeah, I think it could be, but Not if you got some undead guests that never
No,
pay.
no, nope. Let's see. The next thing I think, oh, I noted just when Amy talks about how she kicked the man out of her body, she
Uh-huh.
said, he's ticked, he's pissed off, and he won't talk to me because I won't let him inside my body. I'm like,
Yeah.
that's typical.
Yeah, right?
That tracks.
Yeah. I think I just kind of put down like, oh, great fun because he keeps trying to enter and she
Hmm.
has learned how to do this and he's furious about it. And then she goes, so that was a voiceover that we hear her talk
Yeah.
about because then she talks about like her head is really hurting and like someone took your jaw and ripped it off. And again, we don't
Oh,
know who this is or what's going on just yet. And I
hmm.
don't know if this one ever really ties into any
I
of the
think this was the landowner, wasn't it? I think it was what's his toast? The Hudson Harrison?
okay.
Was it him? Harrison Cooper? I think it was him.
Yeah,
Well,
could
we'll
be.
we'll get there when we get to the reveal. I think we didn't figure out which
Yeah.
one it is. It was I didn't think this was as confusing as the last like two episodes that we did.
Hmm.
We were all like, which one was that? Which was he was which
Yeah,
one?
well, because
What?
there, as we all know, that there's sometimes, or as we have learned, that sometimes there are spirits that are shown that are never talked about.
Yeah,
And sometimes, or they're talked about, but they make it try to fit the box of
yeah,
somebody else because Steve finds some information on them,
yeah.
kind of
And we're
thing.
like, we're not buying it. I don't think that's the match.
Yeah. So I don't, yeah, not sure if all of them kind of tied. I know there's one that I really want to talk about when we get into Steve's investigations, but
Hmm.
I did like how as Steve is talking to Crystal throughout, like, what's going on? And she's talking about watching a light switch get manually
Hmm.
flipped on
Oh
and
my
off.
God.
And to me, I don't know how many of you have multiple light switches for the same room. I mean,
Hmm.
you can't get those damn bastards on
Hmm.
the right thing so that
Hmm.
one is up and one is down
Hmm.
and they're in the right directions. Oh, it drives me insane.
Yeah, we have
Because
that
we
in a
have,
couple of places.
I think we have one set that I just like, I'm like, I don't, I think this, the way that this was installed, you can't make them right.
Probably. Probably. Yeah. Yeah, that drives me crazy too. Oh, I loved your when he asked about documentation from the house or how old the house is. She says, "Oh, I have documentation from 1892." And then Steve goes, "So this house is old. Any deaths in the area?"
I know. I couldn't help myself. I'm so snarky when I watch some of these because so here's what I put, dear listener. I said, no, Steve, everyone who has ever lived in this area is still alive. They're probably the vampire capital of the US. I'm sorry. That is a stupid question. Like, of course there's been other deaths. Nobody edited that to be like other mysterious deaths or
Yeah.
other murders. And so this is we hear now about a woman or a young, young girl named Minnie Quay, and that she'll be kind of a theme that runs throughout here. But just like I sat there for a second, I was like, I rewound it and I listened to it again. I was like, did seriously nobody catch what he just said?
Hmm. Yeah.
Because it wasn't asking about mysterious, it wasn't asking about murders, it wasn't asking about any of that. It was just any other
Yeah.
deaths in the area. No, everyone's still alive.
Yeah. Yeah. And he didn't even say other. At
No.
least according to the
Oh
transcript, he
yeah,
said,
no,
"Are
he
there
just
any deaths in the area?"
any deaths.
I think so, Steve. Like you said, they're not all vampires.
Her mom.
Yeah.
She
That's
inherited the
one.
house from her mom.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, Minnie Quay, so they said she's a local legend that
Hmm.
Crystal is telling Steve about. She's like, it's something we've
Which
heard ever since we
that
were
is
kids.
that is like check for local legend is stuff doesn't all add up here.
Yeah.
Or, as we learn about some of it, but it's kind of like the house at the end of the street where the old witch lives
Yeah,
and
yeah,
there's
yeah. We
really
had one of
nobody
those.
there. Yeah. That's what it was painting like to me, but I get that that's the local lore,
Yeah.
right?
Yep. And I believe that in the next part, that time that we see Amy, that's when she sees that this is the girl that doesn't stop talking. And the
Hmm.
way Amy explains it, she's really funny. She's like, I can't understand a word she's fucking saying. She's like, oh, la, 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 like, right? Like, la, 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 la.
Hmm.
And she's like, she needs to calm down, calm it down, calm it down. And I said, calm your tits, woman.
And I said, oh, so she's us.
Yep.
Yep. Uh,
Let's see. Oh,
then we
yeah.
go to we haven't hit the whole Minnie Quay story yet. So we will
Yeah,
be getting
no.
to that local legend here soon. But Steve's face when he's talking, when they're in the second floor and he's talking with Crystal, she's talking about being in bed one night, hearing footsteps coming up the stairs. She gets out of bed to look at the top of the stairs, expecting to see somebody, and there's no one there. As we're walking down the steps, we realize at that point we were being followed, and they've spanned to Steve's face, and he's just like, he just looks dumbfounded. Like it was just so funny in that section. And then he's like, kids were downstairs.
It wasn't the
And
dog, Steve.
She told you that no one was there.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. It wasn't the dogs. It wasn't the plumbing.
I did put that in there. Maybe it's the plumbing, Steve.
I mean,
just because the last two episodes have been plumbing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then he says that, what if Amy tells you have to go? And she basically is like, probably not going to.
Yeah, at least this seems to be before the era of the dream house. This is our dream house.
Yes.
And like we all get, it's not easy for people to just up and move on a whim, especially if you are worried about selling your house to somebody else kind of thing, even though it's not stuff that needs to be disclosed because there are no like regulations on hauntings.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe there are in different states, but I do not
think that you have to disclose hauntings. I think you do have to disclose if somebody died in the house.
Yes.
But I don't think you have to disclose about hauntings because it is not something that everybody believes in.
Correct.
That's like saying, I'm not going to disclose that Jesus is in my house because some people don't believe that, Mm-hmm. So it's, I think that the haunting thing, I don't think you have to disclose, but I think you do have to disclose.
Because, and it's also like, it's tough to prove to everybody, right? Like,
right.
Yeah.
Right.
So like, I get that. And it was just kind of like, well, I want to make this a bed and breakfast. I'm like, okay, so seriously, you're going to put this into a business when you're not sure what could happen in your business with the things that are happening to you.
Yeah. It's good that they went and got help before they did that then too, so that we didn't have any big problems, but yeah. Then we meet daughter Brittany, not to be confused with the Brittany that we always make fun of.
Yep. No, but this is a sweet Brittany.
Yes. She reminds me so much of my niece. She looks just like her. My niece is a grown-up lady now. She's an adult.
So is this girl.
But she is now, yeah. but how old would you say
I would put her at between 8th and 10th grade, so 13 to 16.
Yeah. Yeah, I was going to say 16. I don't believe they ever said how old she is.
No, I don't, and I almost put her in the 14 to 15 total, but just based on mannerisms, and like that was 13, 14 was the age group that I taught. She was in the time that I was teaching kind of thing. So just very much reminded me of a lot of kids that I taught, like the super swept bangs, like the part was all the way on one side of the hair and there was the super swept bangs and kind of the heavier eye makeup. I can picture a couple of students that I had that I'm like, that's who she reminds me of.
Yeah.
So she would, she'd be mid-20s right now, most likely.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. She was, I think the reason I thought she might have been a little older is because she was so mature, I thought, in like the way that she talked and the way at the end when she talked to Amy and the questions she asked. I thought she was a little older for that. But yeah, that age kid better than I do. So
and that's
right.
like I don't know if I would just like looking at her, I wouldn't I mean, people get my age wrong all the time too. I don't know that I would put her at 16. I'd feel like 15, but then there was times that I was like, well, that seems a little bit more like some of my students, but I could see it being. So yeah, I think she's in that age range, but that like you can see she's very uncomfortable when she's talking with Steve though too. And she's got her hands in at her like waist level and she's just fidgeting with her fingers because we have a further out shot of her and she just looks very nervous, though I think her demeanor between when she's talking with Steve and talking with Amy is very different.
Yes, I thought so too. Yeah. And I don't know, some of that might have been nerves of being in front of the
Mhm.
camera. And then, at the reveal, she's been doing this for a few days and now she's more comfortable.
Right.
I don't know, but could have been any of that. But we really
Mhm.
liked her.
Yes.
Brittany, if you're out there, if you're listening to this, we would love to talk to you.
Brittany from Never Alone.
Yes, Brittany from this episode,
Yes.
not Kitchen Witch. Although that would be fun too. She would never come on the show. All right. So yeah, we're not going to get into everything, but so we're just going to see that Amy, let's see, speaking of the kitchen. Yeah, she
Yeah.
sees a shadowy figure in the kitchen. Amy, then they show her, she sees a male and a female, and she's pointing to the room. This is the male, this is the female. One's angry, one's sad.
Mhm.
And then she says they're black masses that are the beginnings of a psychokinetic manifestation. I can't tell where they came from, but they're powerful and can affect people in this house, especially whoever sleeps in that room. And of course,
Mhm.
that's your Brittany. And it makes you hurt inside.
Ugh.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, what is this? What is this psychokinetic manifestation? We find out more in the reveal.
hmm Yeah. I like that she explains these
Mhm.
terms and stuff for us.
I feel like there's more voiceovers earlier on than there is.
Yeah, I think you're right. There were, because there was quite a few in this one.
Mhm.
And then we meet Crystal's husband, Mike, and he is, for once, not a skeptical, non-believer. Oh, my wife's
He's not a
just
skeptic,
nuts.
Greg.
Right. Right. Or a rude, oh, she's just crazy.
Yeah.
So he sees a shadow in the dining room. Steve says, explain it to me or describe it to me. And he says it was about this wide, but he gestures about a foot, maybe.
Which to me, as he was doing that, because you and I both made comments on this. So we have a joke because you can always see it. Obviously, I outdoors and we fish and stuff. And so you always say, yeah, it was this big. And you put out your thumb and your pinky finger,
Oh.
and then you hold the space in between. So what you really was this big, but you're telling people it was this big.
So your point, the space that it really is the space between your thumbs.
Your
the
thumb
space
and your
you
pinky.
want to make it look.
No.
Oh,
so like the space.
Okay.
Not between your thumb and your pinky.
I thought you were saying like this big versus this big.
So yeah, like truthfully, you're saying your fish was, yeah, it was this big. So the space between your two thumbs, because that is, like he did with the hands, that's the space that you see. But we always joke because most people, it's like, it's actually the space between your pinky finger and your thumb,
okay,
which is because
yeah.
you just got little tiny ones.
Right.
So
right.
It's the fisherman's tale. It's always, it was an odd, like, I don't know. They're just, Steve didn't have the chemistry in this group with this group that well. Like it was all just really awkward conversations.
He did have
it felt
a
like
fuddled look on his face a lot. Yeah.
And it could be just the way it was shot, or maybe there's something that rushed them through, or
Yeah. The only other thing I wanted to mention here before we get on to segment 2 is when Amy is talking about the energy at one point, just kind of, she felt a whoosh, and then everything just went really still. And there was nobody talking. There were no voices. She was getting chills. It felt like she was being touched. And then she said, it's really tall and it bends over to see it. And it's really creepy. It's like 9 feet tall. It has to bend over. And she said, I don't feel good. I feel really sick. And then she goes, that's it. This is bad. And I wondered if that was one of those times that she got sick.
Yeah.
Because she really seemed like she was having a hard time. And she was like, I gotta get the fuck out.
I gotta get out of here now. Like it was like, I gotta go. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was like, ew.
Yeah.
It has to bend to see it. Like, hate it.
Oh, no,
hate it.
That was nasty. So that was segment 1.
Yep.
Segment 2 is where Steve goes into town. Steve going to town. He first talks to Denise Dutcher, who is a local author. And she's the one that tells us the story of Minnie Quay. AP and I both noted that it was shot so like atmospherically, like they were in the dark, almost like they're telling campfire stories with a candle under their chins, you know?
I think they were in, it almost looked like kind of a round foyer type room, like sitting room type thing, and that they couldn't control the light source.
Yeah.
And so they were trying to shut blinds and things because then you got like these weird lines across her
Hmm.
face. And yeah, it definitely gave like a vibe to it, but I kind of think it's unintentional because
Oh,
when they did
really?
the shot that's looking around the room, I think it was a bright sunny day and they couldn't they couldn't block the curtains or blinds well enough, and
Okay.
probably maybe that it looked like a historic building that they couldn't just bring in and duct tape
Yeah. Yeah.
plastic to
Yeah.
the windows or anything.
Yeah. It did look like there was sun coming in the
Hmm.
windows. So they probably just did, I think they wanted it to look a little spooky because,
Hmm.
they do that. They put on
Oh
the
yeah.
fog lights and all that stuff.
I think they wanted it darker, but I don't think they could have gotten it darker with the way
Yeah.
that that room was set up.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is poor Minnie Quay, which we will talk about because her story is interesting. She was 15 years old. This was on April 27th of 1876.
Is her
They
death.
is her death. Yes, they show her death certificate. Her real name is Mary Jane
Yep.
Quay. Her parents are John and Mary Quay. I will have some links in the show notes, but I noted that it said that her Find a Grave page
Hmm.
on findagrave.com says that she was born in 1861, which would have made her 14, but
Hmm.
all the other accounts say she was 15, almost 16, actually. Her death certificate says she was 15 years, 11 months old.
So
So
they
it
must have
does,
had the wrong year.
they must have had the wrong birthday of birth
Mm.
because her date of birth, I did not see on the death certificate.
Yep.
So just there was some stuff interesting in the Wikipedia page about her. And there's two other articles about her. And one of them, the Wikipedia page, says her own mother would often yell out loud enough for others in town to hear that she would rather see her dead than with this man.
Yeah.
And this was a guy that was a sailor. And
Hmm.
he was, so they lived right near the pier, was right across the street from the family's home. And she met this sailor and fell in love with him. And then she got word that he died
Hmm.
while at sea and was so devastated she threw herself into the icy waters
This is where
of
I have the problem.
Erie,
Huron.
Huron.
Huron. So this is where I have the problem with
Okay.
this.
Yeah.
It sounds like every other story we hear about a lady in white, a lady in gray,
Hmm.
a lady in black, a lady in red who was in love with a man and then he said he loved her and then he left and never returned and she threw herself off the balcony,
Hmm.
threw herself off the catwalk, threw herself off
Hmm.
the widow's walk,
Hmm.
threw herself off a pier. So I know that this author has done a lot of research. She's written two books on the whole thing, but I mean, how much stuff can truly be out there? Remember that history is written by the victor or
Hmm.
how they want the story to be told.
Hmm. Hmm.
I don't know. It could be 100% true.
Hmm.
I feel that there's some embellishments or
I
there's
think.
some things that don't feel quite right. And I think maybe I'm just so skeptic on the whole. I've listened to how many episodes of And That's Why We Drink where M covers a lady in white or a lady in
Hmm.
gray or a woman who was waiting at the lighthouse or at whatever and throws
Yeah.
herself off of something or in a hotel in the Old West and jumps off of the balcony of the fourth floor. It just feels convenient.
Yes. And the more I have been learning about the way that society has made us women feel like we have to have the man,
Hmm.
or we're incomplete or we're useless or whatever. I think these stories just play into that,
Hmm.
and they want us to be like, oh no, she didn't have a man. I can see why she threw herself into the lake.
Well,
Even
I
though
mean,
this girl was 15, she could certainly have
this,
found another man in her life. But
right. And this is truly also like, if people haven't realized, society has taught women to, the reason why we have always struggled as a society as women supporting women is because it has been engraved in our brains to survive. We have to outcompete the women for the
yep,
resources of the best man
yep.
who will make the best children, who will provide the best life.
Hmm.
And once you get past that point and you start looking and you're like, no, I can celebrate. I can
Yeah.
celebrate all the women in my life and what
Right.
they do.
Right.
But it definitely does play into some of these things. And, we hear that supposedly her mom used to yell that I'd rather see you dead. But then
Mhm.
it sounds like that her parents weren't in town. But then we hear about a woman screaming, looking for her from
Mhm.
Amy. And even
Yeah.
from some of the stories, the eyewitness stories was like the mom was screaming and looking for her daughter.
Mhm.
I thought she wasn't there.
Yeah. Well, and
Um,
at one point, her father, Minnie's father, locked her in her room
mhm,
for an extended period of time
mhm.
because they did not want her seeing this
Because
man.
she was a wild child.
Yeah,
That was
she
the
was
other
a
thing
wild
that
child.
she was
Boy
boy
crazy.
crazy and a
Yeah.
wild child. And I'm like, this hasn't aged well, has it?
Also fits into that same narrative of, that she had to get this guy that she wanted.
Hmm.
She's only going to be
What,
fulfilled if she's got this
which it
man.
sounds like she was just trying to get out of
Yeah,
a domineering rule in her
exactly.
house, and she was trying to find a way out. And maybe it was the devastation of that was her way out.
Yeah. Yeah, she probably thought that was her way out. And Amy, when Amy sees her, she says she's married.
Hmm.
And I wondered if maybe she did, like, if they did run off and get married at some point. And
Hmm.
I also wondered if she was pregnant. I actually thought she threw herself in the water because she was pregnant and didn't want to have to do that by herself.
Hmm.
But that's
I'm just
just
not fully
just
sold
a
that she
guess.
threw herself in the water.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
I
well,
mean,
and like you said, maybe she slipped because when they show Amy at that space and she's walking around, it's really rocky and
mhm.
it looks like you could slip really easily on those rocks.
Right.
And
Well, and Amy, I can send you a video of just
Mhm.
like the waves that are crashing in. April is still like up in the around the lakes. It is cold,
Really
and that
cold. Yeah.
water is cold. And I mean, April 27th, the high temperature could have been 30 degrees that
Yeah.
day if you're on the wrong side of the lake because it's called lake effect.
Yeah.
And if you, I mean, I've done a polar plunge. I've done a couple polar plunges, which is
Mm.
something that in the states, in different states, we have that is a fundraiser for our state's Special Olympics. And so you, they cut a hole in the ice and you jump in and you go to the other side and you climb out. And I will tell you, you jump in and you go, because like air, your body just constricts
Yeah.
around everything.
I've just jumped in a
It's
cold pool and felt that. There's no way I could do
Mhm.
that in a icy water.
Well, and that's the thing is like, I'm like, well, maybe she slipped and didn't mean to. But then, when we hear Amy talking about like the head or the side injuries and some of those things, I'm like, so gruesome part, they use grappling hooks to retrieve
Yes.
her body. So then I'm
Yeah.
wondering, was she not quite dead yet?
Yeah.
Because
That's
they don't
possible.
say, we don't get told how long she was in the water.
Right.
But if she was out for too long, she would not have been easily recovered
Yeah.
because cold water takes the air out,
Yeah.
which is why
Yeah.
Lake Superior is one of those that if something goes down in Lake Superior, you're never seeing it again.
I just noted they mentioned that that eyewitnesses watched her just walk down Main Street, walk through the town and
In a
head for the
white
pier.
dress,
And I'm
in a
like,
white
okay, first
dress.
of all, yeah, that's really theatrical. But if it is true, I wonder if she was like in a trance or something, like just was catatonic, sort of, and just
Hmm.
on her mission.
Or
I don't know. Or
here's
it didn't
here's
happen at all.
here's my thing to throw out is that somebody maybe walked down that street and then it was just told to people that that was Minnie. Minnie
Hmm.
threw herself off the pier
Hmm.
because it sounds like it was done in broad daylight.
Yeah, it does.
And if all these people saw her, then why was nobody able? I mean, they saw her dive in. I mean, I understand like you can't get everything. You can't rescue everyone, right? You can't like
Sure.
some things just happen, but it, it's not like she probably wasn't struggling at some point because even if you're resigned to do that, your body's still gonna fight.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. I just,
I don't know. But yeah, when Amy she says, I can't breathe. And then
hmm
she says, I think she's dying.
yep.
And
Yeah. I just, I, s- I just struggle with the whole. I mean, I'm sure there's truth behind the story, and again, I know that this author has done a lot of research, and I'm not
Mhm.
discrediting any of that. I just,
Right.
when you've seen the same type story play out in hundreds of ways across the
Yeah.
country,
Yeah.
it makes you question.
Yeah. And like I said, I think it's just that they like this trope because it puts us in our place. And
hmm
because, you know, think about what would have happened. What would our world be like right now if 200 years ago women stopped fighting each other for the man and just
hmm
started supporting each other?
hmm
Think what our world would look like right now.
Yeah.
Wouldn't look like it does now. Tell you that.
Well, and I think even when at the beginning of learning about Minnie Quay, I put in there like, why is she a local legend? A woman died by suicide and she's a local legend. Like,
Yeah. Well, maybe because she did it in front of everybody.
it's because of the
If she did.
fanfare.
Yeah.
It's the That's all part of that legend aspect is there is all this fanfare that went behind it
Mhm.
that has now created this story that, well, Amy, you were there, didn't you see her?
Mhm.
Oh yeah, I did.
Mhm.
Yeah, I saw her
Well,
walking
everybody
down the
wants to be
street.
part of the story,
Exactly.
you know.
And
Oh,
so
I
then,
saw her. Yeah.
yeah. And as you've stated before, like you've found articles in the past of different things it was that we did a couple months ago, and you're like, the stories didn't quite add up. They didn't
Mhm.
quite like based on who wrote it, it
Mhm.
showed different information.
Mhm.
That
Yep. So the next thing I think, are we good with Minnie? Do you have anything
Yep,
else you want to say about Minnie?
I think we got where we wanted to with Minnie.
Okay. And then the next thing is there were a couple of fires that basically devastated the town, destroyed the
hmm
area. And we are talking now to a local historian, and he is talking about these two fires. 1871, there was a massive fire that just hopscotched its way across the state,
Yeah,
hundreds
I
upon
think it
hundreds.
started in Wisconsin actually, where I
Yes, I
saw
think he
that.
did
So
say that.
yeah, the area that we're talking about in of Michigan is the thumb of Michigan.
Mm,
So it's the mitten state kind of
yeah,
thing.
right.
Wisconsin does that too, but the other way.
Yeah, yeah,
I can't
that's
remember
true.
which one. Yep.
Yeah, I think Wisconsin is. Anyway, so then that fire happened in 1871,
hmm
and then they rebuilt. And then there was another fire in 1881 that spelled doom the second time around.
Yes.
It damaged the property pretty badly. We see a couple of photos. I do have a link to the fire of
hmm
71. If I'll put that in the show notes if anybody wants to read about that. So then he's like, you weren't kidding. That has a dark past. This town has a dark past. I'm like, okay, all right.
Thanks
I,
for joining us, Steve.
not, I don't know that I would describe a couple of fires as a dark past. Like when I think dark
They
past, I
weren't
think like
set.
murders
They
and
weren't set by anyone. It
yeah,
was,
it was just
like
happened.
stuff happens.
Yeah,
Wildfires have happened
right,
throughout forests and woodland and prairie areas
right.
for the history of Earth.
Yeah. Steve finds out about, we have to talk about Amy. She sees the fire. In her walkthrough,
Yep.
she sees something happened. Everybody went away. There were people yelling and screaming. There was a woman in blood, and she's got a little boy who's dead. Um, and then we talked to the genealogist.
Another genealogist. Oh, yeah, the
Yes.
genealogist. Sorry.
Yeah.
It was an author before.
Oh, yeah, that was an author. And she teaches Steve about Harrison Cooper, who
Yes.
was a landowner. He used to gather on this is who I think is the burly guy, but we don't get a picture of him, do we? She didn't have a picture of him.
I don't think
Did she?
so.
I don't recall a picture of him. And so he had purchased this land. He lived there with his wife. They had a daughter. Her name was Emma Joy. And then the fire wiped out everything. And his wife was pregnant. She gave birth to this little boy. And then mom died of a heart attack.
hmm
And And Harrison is left with his daughter, Emma, and a baby. And
Mm-hmm.
then 2 weeks later, the baby died from malnutrition.
Mm-hmm.
So apparently he was not taking care of that baby. And then,
Well, that's woman's work, Amy.
yeah, that's right. And the only other woman there was Emma Joy, and she was a baby, or not a
Yep.
baby, but a child,
Toddler. Yep.
toddler. And so then he marries his sister-in-law, as you do.
That seems like it was fairly common.
Yeah, and it was in 1894 for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So then his daughter Emma then was grown up, lived there with her husband, and then Emma gave birth to a stillborn baby.
Yep.
So now he's lost a grandchild and a child.
Mm-hmm. And a
And
wife.
yes, and a wife. And they do think that the baby was buried on the property.
Yes.
And we see a death certificate, but it's all crinkled up. It's really hard to read.
Yeah. See, this is why I was confused if this was the first one that Amy talks about, the first burly guy,
Mm-hmm,
if that was Harrison Cooper or not, because when she talks about the pain,
mm-hmm.
because we never hear about how he died or
Right, that's
any
true.
of that sort of stuff. So
That's
that's why
true.
I wasn't sure if was that two different things that they melded into one section kind of thing. So
Well, now that you mention it, and I did, like I said, I saw this like 3 times, but we'll get there because we're almost to the
Mhm.
reveal now. Anyway, but maybe Harrison is one of the blobs.
Yes, she believes that he's one of
Okay, okay.
that manifestation is
Yeah.
him and Emma.
Emma, not his wife, his daughter.
Yes.
Okay.
Emma being the one with the stillborn.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I do remember them saying that now.
Yep.
Okay. So sketch. She says she's going to draw the black masses in the bedroom upstairs. Oh, do we have something else?
No, before that we have Amy talking about the woman who is really sobbing.
Oh, yeah,
and
yeah.
she's holding the baby that died.
Mhm,
she's petting it.
Petting it.
Which just to me that elicits like obsession and like she never was able to control or handle. And so two things. This could be Emma and her baby, or it could have been Emma's mom because she died of a heart attack, quote unquote, and lost her child then shortly thereafter.
Right.
So all she knows is that she's a woman who has blood all over her dress and she's holding this baby and petting it. So to me, again, like obsession didn't deal with the loss, but then she's fading and she doesn't want to fade away. But she actually doesn't want to because she likes to be around those memories, even though they're bad. And this is again where it's maybe like this is Emma if the baby was buried on the property.
I tend to think this is Emma because if her dress is bloody, she's probably just given birth.
So she's stuck in that state.
And she's stuck in that state and she's probably petting that child because she is trying to revive it.
Yeah, that's where I'm like, it's like an obsession. It's, like I haven't dealt with this. What happened? What's going on here? Yeah, I think she's stuck in that state.
Yeah.
Even though she herself did not die in that state.
Yeah.
So I pulled that out because I was like, she's fading. Like we haven't heard Amy say like we've heard somebody's being like eaten by the house or absorbed by the house, but we haven't heard about somebody just fading away.
Right. Yeah, that was interesting.
So now we get to the sketch.
And she describes what's going on. The sketch artist says, Amy, is this about right? And Amy says, yes. Okay, segment 3. So the reveal. Steve introduces everybody and that they want to make it into a bed and breakfast, yada, yada, yada.
And Amy, it's Crystal, Mike, and Brittany. So the 3 we did meet during the episode.
Yes. And you had a note about the way Steve sits.
So have you noticed this at all? And he does it a lot. But Steve has a tendency to rest, like he puts his index finger out and he puts it to his temple, and that's where he kind of rests his hand. He's not, or his head. He's not resting on the full fist or anything. He's always, and it's always like he'll lean into it, and he does that several times, but it's always like in the temple range of where he's doing that. So it was just something I noticed, and I was like, he seems to be doing that a lot.
Yep, I have noticed that. So we find out that so Amy talks about the bad thing that happened outside. Steve connects that to the fires.
Mm-hmm.
And then blah blah blah. Let's see. Oh, she talks about the man that came and tried to get into her body when she opened. And then poor Brittany almost interrupts Amy by saying, "What did he look like?"
Mm-hmm.
And then Amy describes him as a big, very husky guy. And Steve
Oh,
goes,
and
"Why'd you
her.
ask her that?" And she goes, "Because I've seen a man. It's a dark shadow."
Mm-hmm.
And then Amy says, "Is he big?" And she says, "Yep." And then she's like tearing up. Amy says, "Are you okay?" Oh, I
Mm-hmm.
felt so bad for her. And then poor Brittany asked if he's dangerous. And she said, "Yeah. Say you're sleeping. The distinction between reality and dreams can get blurred." And then Steve says, "Yep, she's having nightmares."
Mm-hmm.
And then he can come and go. And Brittany says, "Does he watch us?" And Amy says, "Well, yeah." She's like, "Well, I
He
feel like I'm
watches
being
you.
watched. That's why I asked."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. Now Amy talks about going upstairs, seeing the woman sobbing, really crying, like really hard. And heard someone say, "Well, the baby died."
Mm-hmm.
So if it's, I mean, I can't imagine there being another mother crying about a
Mm-hmm.
dead baby if it wasn't Emma, because
You're
her
right.
baby died in childbirth.
Yep.
And so I think it must be
I
Emma.
do too. I just there is that connection that it could have
Sure.
been
It
from the
could have been the mother.
fires. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, it could have been something completely random and just somebody who died. Yeah, exactly.
It easily could be something like that, and then it's just tied to because hey, this is what we do have
Hmm.
a connection here.
Right, right. So they do talk about Steve connects, I think. It looks like he's connecting
Yes.
Harrison Cooper to the big burly man.
Yep. And he basically or no, Crystal asks, "Well, do you think that that's Emma then, the Amy?"
Hmm.
And she's just like, "Well, it would seem like it."
Hmm. It
Which
does.
is which is not fully like if you read Amy's body language,
Yeah.
she's like, I mean, yeah,
I mean,
from
could be.
what I know.
Well, they don't have pictures of these people. So she
Exactly.
can't like look at the
Yep.
picture and say, "Oh, that's totally him. That's totally
Yeah.
the guy I saw." So they don't have any pictures of these people.
Yeah. I will say
Um,
too, though, just that whole interchange with Amy and Brittany and stuff, it was just like Brittany's asking great questions because she
mm,
wants to know the answers. And I think I have it somewhere in here too that it's like there just seems like there's like a cutoff at one of the points where
mm,
it seems like Amy went into a lot more detail, a lot more stuff because we just go from like, and it's more towards the like, what can you do? But it was just this hard cutoff. And I was like, I feel like we're missing a lot right here because now we have to go to like what they need to do in order to.
yeah, I that would not shock me at all because this was a long reveal in
Mm-hmm.
comparison. I checked the clock. I mean the thing at
Timer.
the bottom. The thing at the bottom that says what
The
how
ticker
much
tape.
time is left. Yeah, that it was like 15 minutes where
Mm-hmm.
it was like a third of the show. Or
Mm-hmm.
usually it's like the last quarter.
Mm-hmm.
It was a good third of the show. So
Mm-hmm.
they did a lot. That reveal must have been hella long.
Yeah.
And they obviously had to cut a lot out. So I'm guessing that's what happened. And they left a lot in because
Yes.
the other two sections were much shorter than they usually are. But so yeah, then they talk about Minnie and let's see. Do Amy says she thinks it probably is Minnie.
Yeah, the woman who's the crazy lady or the woman who's just
That won't
chattering
stop
and
talking.
yep.
Yeah.
And she talks about someone yelling, "Where are you? Where are you?" which I'm associating is likely her Minnie's mother calling
Yep.
for her. That's what I got from Amy
Yep. Yep.
about that. And then Steve kind of tells the story and we go back through the whole thing and Amy's like, "Oh man, oh no, like really she did that?" And Crystal, "Yeah, we've been told this, all our lives we've been told this." And Steve's like, "Yeah, could that be Minnie Quay, the same girl?" And Amy's like, "Yeah, I think it very well could be. She might be going between different locations all the time, and it's more than just this house. So because she got her out on the street too, but she was different
Mhm.
on the street. And then that's when Amy segments away from Minnie to the next person being a girl. Oh no, she talks about girl being wild and crazy. She sees one outside that she thinks is the same Minnie Quay, but then she's different inside the house.
Hmm.
So I don't know.
Yeah. I just wanted to note, I think we both noted that when Brittany and Amy are talking, and Amy describes the two blobby things in the room, and
Hmm.
she says they're very, very creepy. And they show Brittany, and she's wiping tears, and she just quietly says, I see it.
Hmm.
And then they cut to commercial.
Yeah. And then they come back. When they do show the picture though, they look like those things you see at the car lots
Yes, they do.
that are blowing up in the crazy arms.
They do. Not as cute, but
No.
yeah, they do.
But that's where Amy said, I think this one is him. The
Hmm.
one on the left side of the picture,
Hmm.
she thinks is Harrison Cooper. And
Hmm.
these are, the manifestations, let's see if they can make you feel sick and dizzy. The male one was trying to jump me. This is just a part of him and the nasty emotional part, but there's also the separate conscious entity that is his own person. So basically, what she said is that these are manifestations that are poltergeist like,
Hmm.
but they're spirits that are creating these poltergeist like
Instead
things
of living people. Yep.
instead of living things.
Yep.
And they can make this jump to being separate entities if they have enough energy
Power.
around them,
Yeah.
basically.
Yep. Yep.
And yeah, and she kind of called out, poltergeist stuff usually happens around teenagers. So that made me wonder too, like, is Brittany, are her emotions feeding these things a little bit with some potential PK or poltergeist activity from her
Hmm.
that's then feeding into these funnels?
Hmm. Yeah, it could be. She could be inadvertently feeding it some energy.
Because
But these,
she does bring up like that poltergeist activity happens with teenagers.
yeah. And then Steve goes, so where are you sleeping tonight? To Brittany,
Yeah,
because those things are in her room.
not
And
here.
then not here. And then Amy goes, I wouldn't sleep in your room right now. No way. And I'm like, well,
Mm-mm.
if Amy won't, then I sure as shit would not.
Yeah. Yep, I found the part where it says, Amy says, they're reaching out. I think it's because of your age. A lot of poltergeist hauntings will be around teenagers and they'll be the conduit for it. So they feed off the living person's energy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Which makes total sense.
And then
So,
this is when we see like a hard cutoff. And it was like, because Brittany asked, well, is it just me or my parents too?
yes,
And Amy goes, you.
you.
And then Steve goes, now that we know the
Yeah.
results,
Yeah.
like
There was a lot
there was
more to that
obviously a
conversation.
lot that was cut there.
Yeah.
And which is interesting that if what I think was probably in there was what was cut, that is why I was like, oh,
Yeah. Yeah.
because I think Brittany has a little bit of that ability that's
Yeah.
pulled off on here. And that's why I don't know why it's not being talked about, but
Yeah. I thought that too. I thought obviously she sees everything. It's really affecting her. So she's sensitive
she's
at
asking all the
minimum, and
questions.
she knows what to ask. Yep. So I think
Hmm.
she's a little bit more on the medium level
Yep.
than
At
they're
least
indicating.
receptive.
Yes. Yeah.
All right. So, Amy, what did Amy tell us that they need to do?
Well, she says they need to get a medium to come in and help move Minnie on, not talk to her, not do anything, just move her on. Then the medium will go up to the room and ask the male to receive this, pointing to the left blob, back as a part of him so that he is whole, and then move him on. And then she needs to deal with the other blobby thing.
Hmm.
And that needs to basically get her to come and collect her energy, which is basically what she said about the guy too, and then take it out of the house. Amy says it's a funky emotional energy that needs to
Hmm.
be contained and removed from the house, and the medium needs to do that. And then she's like, go ahead and sleep in another area of the house until this shit is taken
Yeah.
care of.
So, where you sleeping tonight?
With you, Steve.
Yeah, it just was one of those that was like, could we have found a better way to ask a teenage girl where she's sleeping?
Oh, I didn't think he meant it creepy. Like, I thought he was just trying to be funny.
I think he was, but I think there's a line between like his dry sarcasm type things, but it was just, I think the way that it was delivered, even it was like, it's just like asking if there was any deaths around here since 1892.
Yeah, no, nope, they're all still alive.
Correct.
So they say they're going to follow the advice, and then Amy says if Crystal and her family do this, they'll be fine. Their dreams of opening a bed and breakfast should come true. And then it went
Mhm.
right to the next episode for me.
Oh, but I had it.
Yeah. And I
And
did go get
I know you
screenshots
did.
when I watched it on Hulu, but you go ahead and tell everybody what happened.
Immediately after the investigation, Mike was attacked by an unseen entity. Crystal is now searching for a medium to cleanse their home, and that's
Yeah,
all we get.
that's all we get. So we don't know. So
Mm-mm.
again, Crystal, Mike, or Brittany, if you're listening to this and you would like to come on and tell us your story, we would love, 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 love to hear it.
Absolutely.
Yes, because we're invested now. We hope you're okay.
Hmm.
Yeah. This was a good one. I like this episode
This was a great episode.
because I
Good
really like the
pick.
family. Thanks. I really like the family and all of
Well,
that.
and it was, I mean, there was a lot of stuff in it, but it was also, it, in a way, the content was slightly lighter than some of the ones that we've had with
Hmm.
heavy racist tones.
We didn't have any
And
demons.
no, we didn't have any
It's
demons.
been a while. We've had lots of demons lately.
We just had psycho something manifestations,
Yeah.
psychokinetic.
Psychokinetic, I think it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for joining us for this time. AP is going to tell us what we're doing next. Well, next week is going to be probably a sideshow episode, but the
Yes.
next Dead Files episode is going to be.
Yes.
Get it.
Our next episode that we're going to be covering is an episode called Dark Inheritance. It's season 3, episode 14. Again, could be a little off depending on if you're streaming from Max or Discovery Online or if you're watching Travel Channel
Yeah.
on demand.
Yeah.
The Travel Channel synopsis is Steve and Amy investigate a frightened family's claims of violent paranormal encounters inside their home in Winthrop, Massachusetts. While Steve discovers the property's violent past and Amy confronts a vengeful, disfigured entity that wreaks havoc on the living. So this was Megan's choice. So we asked her why she chose this one, and she said, Amy, I'll let you go with that.
Oh, okay. She said, because it takes place in Massachusetts and I love their accent. Good a choice as
Hey.
any.
Why not?
This is part of our chill, what did we decide it was called?
Chili chats.
Chili chats. So yes, that's one thing. Chili chat. We should have talked about this in the beginning. I forgot. We have picked episodes that take place in chillier climes, just like for our spring break. We picked episodes that
Did you
were
just call
in
it climbs?
Yeah. Yeah, haven't you heard that term?
No.
Oh, yeah.
I've never heard it
Like
called
it's short
climbs.
for climates.
I get that.
Climbs.
I've never heard that before.
Really? I
No.
thought I haven't used it before. Anyway, so we picked, stuff where either like people look like they were snuggled up or it was really snowy or whatever. But like the really snowy ones, like in Buffalo, those we've already done. So
Mhm.
we don't want to do those again. But that's what we were doing. And we're only doing 3 this time. We each picked one instead of doing 6 weeks. We're only doing 3.
Yes.
But that was sort of our theme. And because we use the name chili chats, we decided that we would also probably talk about chili. Like kinds of chili we like. We're going to have the whole beans, no beans discussion next time because Megan is a no beans.
Mhm.
I'm a more beans than meat.
Yep. I will try just about anything in it, though. I do find people in Iowa and Wisconsin do cinnamon rolls and chili.
Really?
I've also known people who are like, yeah, I have to have my peanut butter sandwich with my chili. I'm like,
okay, that's
excuse me, what?
odd. I love a peanut butter sandwich with chicken noodle soup because there's something weird about the 2 flavors that at first taste really weird in your mouth together, but they end up being delicious.
Yeah, my weird one is extra sharp cheddar and crackers with hot chocolate.
Oh.
Not like I dip it in, but I
just eat
crave
it
it
together.
So if I have a
Interesting.
really good thick hot chocolate, I
Mhm.
crave that balance of the sharp cheddar.
Interesting.
Not like Colby, not like
Interesting.
Swiss.
No,
It needs to be that
sharp.
hard, sharp cheddar where you get that bite.
Yeah. Okay.
hmm
Well,
I have learned my grandma on my dad's side that was something she would always have cheese and crackers and hot cocoa.
oh. So I think that I will pick a chili recipe and we will feature it on socials. And
Oh,
then next week, Megan can pick one with no beans, whatever. And then when it's your episode, you can pick one.
yeah. I've got a good sweet potato black bean chili that I've done. That's a vegetarian chili.
Nice. Okay.
Or I've added ground venison or turkey and stuff to it, but
Yeah.
I like a good vegetarian chili.
I don't know which one. I have a couple. My just regular red chili is yummy, but I don't really follow a recipe.
I
Huh?
don't use
I just throw
recipes.
shit
That's my
together.
problem.
I just throw shit together, but
Nothing
I
ever tastes the
do-
same twice.
I know my red chili doesn't ever taste the same twice, but I also make a white chili, white chicken chili
hmm
that I do follow the recipe because it was a Bon Appetit recipe that I then changed a bunch of things. So I call it my own
hmm
and that I have written down. So that I'll probably use that one. It's really good.
Yeah.
It's really, really good. It sometimes tastes different too, depending on what kind of stock you use. Whether you
Yeah.
use like homemade chicken stock or
Yeah.
a different kind, but it's delicious. So I think
Nice.
that'd be good if we do that, all different types of chili. So
Can do.
stay tuned for chili recipes.
Awesome.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us, everybody.
Yeah. Thanks,
Hope you
everyone.
enjoyed it. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Activity Continues podcast. We really appreciate you giving us your ears for a bit. Please reach out if you have a spooky story you'd like us to share on the show. We can be reached at theactivitycontinues@gmail.com or through our website or any of our socials. Links are all in the description of the show. Please feel free to drop us a note and say hi. And join us next time when the activity continues. The Activity Continues is produced by me, Amy, at Collected Sounds Media and is part of the independent Collected Sounds podcast network. We are also proud members of the Boo Pod network of super cool podcasts.
Nailed it.